Hey guys, welcome back to Color Connection with Amber. This episode, we're going to be using one colorway in 3 ways using 3 different mediums. This month's Inspiration Challenge is hosted by Nicole Watt, one of our design team members and educators. Let's jump right in. I have the Marshland washi tape here. I'm also going to be using the Tea Party washi tape for this card. So I've just torn off a piece here and I'm going to apply it to the cardstock. You can go ahead and tear the tape before you put it down. I wasn't entirely sure what my design was going to be, but once I put it down on the cardstock, I decided I wanted the leaves coming from the side and only from one side. So you can see me tearing off bits of this so that we just have a few clusters of leaves here. If you follow me, then you know that I love to design with black. There's something about it that I think just makes the colors on your card pop. I love the high contrast of the black. Because of that, I don't often use gray. Prior to making these cards, I really felt like it was a little drab. It wasn't as eye-catching as I feel like black is. So this can open up your eyes to the possibilities with gray. I think that it's an underrated color and it's something that I think I'm going to use more often in my cards. So here I have the Tea Party washi tape set. So there are 4 shades, all 4 shades of Tea Party tape here. And I'm using the 2 lightest colors. And this is in line with our Inspiration Challenge color palette. So I'm just trimming off the corners of my tape and then I just fold it around. Here I have 2 different colors of coral cardstock and I'm trying to decide which color I want to use. I ultimately picked the darker coral and I have the handwritten hello die set here. So I used the darker coral cardstock for the shadow and I'm going to stack up a couple of white hellos on top of that. I went ahead and adhered my die cut and I stamped My Sweet Friend in a medium gray ink. And here I have the satin white sequins, and I'm just now realizing these may actually not be released by the time this video goes live, but don't fear, they'll be released soon, so just keep your eye out for sequins. You may have already seen them from the Creativation clips. So here's the finished card. I love how you can see the marshland leaves through the Tea Party tape, and I really am enjoying the torn edges of those leaves. Next, I have Angelique Motifs, and I'm going to use this to create almost a fabric type pattern on my card. So I have the smallest stamp set, and I've lined up the center of the stamp set with the horizontal 2 3/4, and then the back end of the stamp is lined up at 2 inches. The middle of my larger stamp is at 2 1/8. And so basically I've lined up those stamps so that they fall in the center of the cards on the vertical and the horizontal axis. That was because I wanted my stamps to line up so that I could stamp both of them at the same time and be able to turn my cardstock 180 degrees and create this repeating pattern like you would see on fabric. I stamped the solid layer in Peach Perfect, then I stamped the first detail layer in Coral Berry and the second detail layer in Ruby Red. For the centers, I used Limestone for the solid layer and Industrial Diamond for the second detail layer. The larger stamps have a second detail layer. I stamped those in Obsidian Pigment Ink. And then for the smaller blooms, I'll actually use a pen to add that little bit of black detail. For the leaves, I'm using the same 2 grays and the Obsidian ink. Now for this, I can't get all 4 corners stamped. I have to go ahead and stamp 2 of them and then switch the placement of the stamp and then do the other 2 corners. So it takes a little bit longer than the flowers did, but it's still, I find, the most efficient way to do your layer stamping with a repeating pattern like this is to set up multiple stamps at a time. And actually, if I had thought about it, I could have gone ahead and set up my leaves at the same time and inked those up as well, because it's not like they touch. So that is something that you could maybe try as well, and it would be even faster. So I'm just using a Sakura micron pen to add a little bit of black detail to the smaller blooms. And here I stamped this panel first and realized that I would prefer it if those flowers were further apart and facing away from each other. It is really rare for me to start a card over, but it was really making my eye twitch. that there wasn't enough space in between those. So I went ahead and stamped a sentiment from Rennie Roses onto a piece of vellum, wrapped that around the back of the card, and just adhered it with some washi tape. So I love the close-up of this and the different layers. I love how the peach goes with those pinks so nicely. And I think that the gray, particularly with that one layer of black, adds such a nice contrast. I couldn't get away with not using black. Here we have layered floral elements dies, 3D dies, and I have a couple selections. So those same cardstocks that you saw. Now, those aren't Altenew cardstocks. I don't actually have the Tea Party gradient cardstock, but if you have that, that would be a perfect choice for this. And I have the Doodled Dots cover die, and I've cut that from Nina Classic Crest Solar White. I have a piece of gray cardstock behind that, so we're using the same color palette. I went ahead and glued my elements together. Now, normally I cut out all of the adhering of the elements to the card down because I feel like you don't really need to see that. You see the arrangement in the photos and you don't necessarily need to see me glue things down. But I made a mistake here and I wanted you to see how I fixed it. So I'm adding that in. Here I felt like my vellum just wasn't quite tight enough. So I'm just making a little bit tighter so it lays flat. And these sentiments are some of my favorites. You guys have seen them before. These are from the Bold Greetings die set. And I cut it once into gray cardstock and twice in white and stacked those up. So here you can see I have glue on this little flower. I have glue all over the back of these little buds here. And I like it right there. But then I decide to play around with it and move it. And so basically what's happening right now is I'm smearing glue all over the vellum. Now normally you'd be able to see all of that, but I went ahead and took an adhesive eraser and I kind of like tried to dry it with my hand and then took the adhesive eraser just to get all of that adhesive off, and it worked perfectly. You can't tell that there was any glue on that vellum at all. So now it'll be easier with the thank glued down already. I'll go ahead and glue down my flower. I'll put my U down so I have things right aligned, and then I'll just place that right on top of those buds. So I like this placement better. With this particular sentiment, I do like to right align the edges because the tail on the K and the U are exactly the same. I think they look really nice right aligned and stacked like that. Here's the finished card, and I really enjoy the understated elegance of these die cuts, the layered floral elements die cuts. There's not a ton of detail to them, but they really capture your attention with the large blocks of color. I think coupled with the Doodled Dots cover die, it's really a perfect pair. Here are the finished cards together. I hope you enjoyed this palette. In our next episode, I'm going to be exploring the same palette, but also using some embossing paste to add texture, using that photo as an inspiration for the design. So be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so that you don't miss the next episode in Color Connection with Amber. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you real soon.